Hello, viewers. Today is October 28th, 2024, and I'm here to share my thoughts and opinions on the US presidential elections 2024. Today, I'm going to look at the early voting data from the state of North Carolina and see exactly where we are as of today, as of today's report, which is basically the early voting as of yesterday evening. So let's go ahead and take a look at the data without any delay. There we go. Let's go ahead and look at this data that we got here in terms of registration. Sorry, the total ballots cast. That's around 2.8 million so far. That accounts for probably 36 or close to 37% of the total eligible voters, 36.11% to be precise. And out of which you see 2.6 million voters are in-person early voters, and the rest are through the mail, civilian, military, and overseas. Then if you look at the party registration data, there are some small changes because there are still registration going on. So there are like 31.28% Democrats, 29.86% Republicans, and independents are 37.84% in the state of North Carolina. Then if you look at the early voting based on party affiliation, you see around 938,000 odd people have come out and voted, the Democratic Party affiliated voters. And that's basically a 38% of this 2.4 million. Republicans have got 961,000 of the 2.3, that's 41% of the registered voters who have registered as Republicans. And then independents have come out close to 904,000 voters out of the 2.9. So they account for close to 30% of the voters that have voted so far. But if you look at the proportion based on the early voting totals, this 938,000 out of the 2.8 million is basically 33%. And then this 961 out of this 2.8 is 34%, and 904,000 out of 2.8 million is 32%. So if you look at this data, it looks like slightly more Republicans have voted in this current electorate who had already voted, slightly by less than 1%. And you look at it, it's pretty much split even between Democrats, Republicans, and independents. And that also kind of more or less mirrors, except Republicans are slightly overperforming here in terms of the proportion. The registered voters there are only 29.86%. Even if you take it as 30%, they are outperforming by around 4% here. And the independents have not come out and voted to their vote percentage in terms of registration. So we need to look at this number more closely in the next 3-4 days to see exactly whether this changes drastically or not. But as of now, I think Republicans are coming out and voting in the state of North Carolina. Democrats are also doing a reasonably good job. So if you look at this just slide, it looks like this state will be decided on how the independents are going to vote. Anyways, some of you had asked, just because they are affiliated Democrat Party voters, are they going to vote straight on a straight party line ticket? Definitely not. But generally speaking, if they had identified themselves as a particular party in a particular state, a good portion of them, a significant portion of them vote on party line. Even for Republicans, that holds true. Only in certain circumstances, like in a particular area, like in a suburban area of Raleigh, Durham area, some of the Nikki Haley voters who have identified themselves as Republicans might vote for Kamala Harris. We do not know that at this juncture. We will know only after counting exactly how those voters are going to have come out and voted. So based on this first slide, it looks like it's kind of even. Then let's go and look at the next one. So here, in terms of voter registration, you have whites composed of 63% of the registration by race. So it's predominantly a state which has got a significant white population. And blacks are close to 20%, and the other is around 16.54%. And if you look at how those people have voted early, you look at a turnout of 40% of the white voters who have come out. And if you look at the proportion, they are like 71% of the electorate. So this is a very good news. I'm not saying all whites are going to vote for Republicans, but still their white voters are outperforming their actual registration numbers in that state. So that's good, bodes well for the Republicans. Then if you look at the African American or black voters, the turnout is 32% of that 1.5 million, and they are at 17.54% of the current electorate of early voters. That's like 2.2% less than their makeup in terms of registration. So that's a cause of concern for the Democrats. We need to keep an eye out for this to see if this number inches up to 19, 20. If it goes above 20 is when the Democrats will feel comfortable that within the composition of the electorate for this election, blacks or African Americans are overperforming their registration numbers. That is the number that these strategists will look at. Even if it is exactly the same, they are not going to be really excited about this. But if on the particular composition of the electorate for that election, if they overperform their percentage in terms of registration, that's when they will feel very excited about that number. And then when you look at the other race, they are at 11.331%. They are actually 16% of the registered voters. So they are also kind of underperforming here. So then going down the list, registration by ethnicity, you have Hispanic or Latino is 4.5%, not Hispanic or not Latino is 66%, and undesignated is 29.52%. In this, you really look at it, Hispanic or Latino is actually, the turnout is 20% of the electorate. Still, the proportion is only 2%, which is less than that. And if you look at not Hispanic or not Latino, that's the major number here. And that's pretty much the majority of the votes that have come out. So undesignated again is 31% of the turnout, and the proportion is 26%, which mirrors more or less to their registration. So then you look at the gender here. 49.24% of the registered voters in North Carolina are women, and 41.97% are male, and undesignated is 8.79%. If you look at this number here, in the turnout, there are 38% of the turnout, the female voters, but their proportion is 51.94 of the electorate. So the current electorate, makeup of the electorate is 51.94% of women voters, 41.91% of male voters, and 6.15% is undesignated. So this number, we need to keep an eye out for this number. Generally speaking, if there is a gender gap now in terms of the proportion, female voters are close to 10 points more than male voters. If this trend continues, I think that might not look good for the Republicans. Generally, they do not want the gender gap in terms of the voter composition to not go beyond 3%. So if it is 51-48, they'll be okay. But if there is a 10% gap, I think they will be not happy. So moving on, the next slide is very interesting in the sense we have the top 10 counties in terms of total number of votes polled already. And I'm looking at those top 10 counties. And then I'm looking at how did they vote in the prior election. So the top 10 counties in terms of total number of votes polled so far are these: Wake, Mecklenburg, Guilford, Forsyth, Durham, Buncombe, Union, Brunswick, Cumberland, New Hanover. And if you look at this, if you look at Wake, Biden was the winner in 2020 and he won by a margin of 167. So there were like 631,000 voters in Wake County in 2020, out of which 308 has already voted. So this number we need to keep an eye out. We still have close to 6 days of early voting. This number eventually with the election day votes, this might go up to 700,000 is my feeling. Same thing with Mecklenburg. Again, there are like 280,447 early votes right now. Biden won that by a margin of 198,000 odd votes. So a very significant margin. And the total number of votes were 567,000. So this number, I think, will most likely hit 567 without any issues. But just like Wake, this, I think, is going to touch 600 if the voting trends continue like this in terms of the enthusiasm. Guilford, you can go down that list again. So the top 6 are all Biden counties. So this looks like there is a good amount of enthusiasm in the counties that Biden won. And then there is this Union County, which is the seventh on that list. Trump won by a very good margin, 31,000 odd votes. And they have come out and voted. 72,000 have already voted out of the 131,000 from last time. So that must be really good for Donald Trump. Then Brunswick, again, they had 90,000 votes in 2020, out of which 64,000 has already voted. So this must also be very good news for Trump. And also it looks like they will beat this number. In 2024, I think this will get closer to 100,000 or 105,000 and Union might hit 150,000. So you get the idea. Out of the 10 top counties in terms of total number of votes cast as an early vote this time, 8 of them are the counties that Biden won, and 2 of them are the counties that Donald Trump won. So that leaves us with this question on what does this tell us? From my perspective, it's still a very close race. There is some data to suggest that Republicans or Republican affiliated voters are coming out in good numbers in the state of North Carolina. And there is also this gender gap. So that all boils down to it will just balance each other out, in my view. And we are looking at a very close race. This is going to be one state that's going to take a long time to declare after election day, it looks like. And I think the margin, I don't see it. Whoever wins, I don't think the margin is going to be 80,000 or 100,000. I think the margin is going to be close to 50,000 or 60,000 in the state of North Carolina at this point. And then moving slightly away from North Carolina, looking at the national polls, there are a couple of polls that has come out in the last 2-3 days. One of them is actually the ABC News poll, and that currently says, that came out I think yesterday evening, that says that the race is kind of within the margin of error, but among likely voters, they give 51-47 in favor of Harris. And they also have some internal numbers within that poll. that looks good for Kamala Harris in terms of the issues and other things, except for immigration and inflation. I think she's winning on all the issues by a significant margin. But more importantly, she has caught up with at least the Joe Biden margin on African American votes and also the Hispanic votes. That is a significant change. So I don't want to trust that poll. I want to see if this trend continues for the next 2, 3 days because it might be an outlier. Even though I tend to trust the likely voters poll and also it comes from a reputed polling organization, and I don't think ABC will release something that's not very reputed. So it looks like she's closing slightly better. But on the other side, if you really look at the Republicans, Donald Trump is very confident that he's going to win. And you talk to any one of those Republican strategists or operatives, they think they have this election in the bag. They're very confident and they think they're going to win majority of the battleground states. So, so I would like to see if there are any other polls that align very closely with the ABC poll that came out last evening. So till such time, I still feel it's still a very close election, and it is going to go down to some few thousand votes in these 6, 7 battleground states that is going to determine this election. Nothing has changed. And so that's why it is very difficult for even pollsters to come out and say that this person is going to win this for sure. So that's it for me today. Tomorrow I'll try to look at the Pennsylvania numbers and I'll come up with an episode on Pennsylvania. Till then, take care.